you met with Raghuram Rajan in a
Not
seminar
met
of
exactly.
sorts.
We're discussing. So
As an audience.
when I was in Gangtok, then I enrolled into a course also in Sikkim University. And Sikkim University Economics Department had just organized a seminar, and Raghuram Rajan had happened to come. So one of the university graduates just asked about career choices and all, and he actually made this, statement that others, people are like, you're wasting time. If you want to get into civils, you have to get as early as possible. Everyone has their arguments. Everyone has their perspective, and I have no issue with that. But I just was doing what I thought was right all along the way. It's not, both are not like one is always better than the other. At times you have to make choices even between apples and oranges where you can't even compare, but then you still have to pick one. So I think that is where a stand becomes important, that you may choose Apple, but then you have to ensure that at that point of time, Apple is done with all your the knowledge, the analytical ability, the reasonableness that you have at that point of time.
Now, I think people who are watching this definitely do know, why we're always scaling high on. Hi everyone, I'm back on Raw and Real again, and this time I have Zenden with me. And this conversation is going to be super duper awesome for those people, those graduates, postgraduates who are trying to explore their way into UPSC and above. Because when you'll get to know Zenden, apart from the big numbers, like he scored 210 in this year's interview, which I think arguably is the highest, and someone can check the records and confirm, but still. And he's still to finalize his service preference. I mean, what he'll get, either ISS or IPS, we'll come to that. But we just got some half an hour with Zenden today on Sunday evening. Zenden, I forgot what you're in the Indian Economic Services right now. And just can you quickly tell us about what you're working right now in? And then segue us back to your undergrad, postgrad life. Tell us your big decisions. You've spent 6 years in this UPSC exam. And that would be an interesting long journey to get into as well, especially with respect to the interesting choices you made in the last attempt. You took sociology, you junked all the other optionals from before. So let it be more of you, holding this platform and talking about. So start from what you're doing right now with the IES, and then let's go back to your undergrad and come back to UPSC.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Yeah, thanks for tuning in and listening to my talk. So at present, I'm in the Indian Economic Service 2018 batch. So recently, I have moved to, it's been 1 month now, I've moved to the Department of Commerce. And before that, prior to that, I was in the Ministry of Labour as Assistant Director. And in January, I got my promotion, and as Deputy Director, I was moved to Department of Commerce. And within Commerce, I'm in the trade negotiations wing, multilateral, and mostly looking into the WTO issues. And within the WTO issues, the agriculture and the WTO reform specifically. So,
and when I pulled you in today, you were working on a specific assignment, right? I think.
Yeah. So I think it's best if you don't discuss all of that right now.
Cool, awesome. We won't.
See as it unfolds. Yeah. So basically, because WTO is such a very dynamic, very important, organization where India, as one of the emerging economies, has a lot at stake because we are such a big trader, and we are such an agrarian economy, and agriculture is one of the most important, I think for India especially, the most important negotiation platform at the WTO. So that is very interesting. And coming back to my graduation, I did my graduation from SRCC, Delhi University in Economics Honors. Then, like we were discussing during graduation, would you like me to go through the whole?
Yeah. Not the whole through, but just tell us about your thought process of finally getting onto the UPSC bandwagon.
So I think, to be honest, back of my mind, the UPSC is always there, right, from childhood, because my one distant aunt, rather the one who actually is my namesake, who named me and my elder sisters. She was in the Indian Administrative Service, I think 92 batch, and she passed away when in a helicopter crash while on duty in Arunachal. She was in the Agmut cadre. So she passed away while I was in primary school in 2001. And she had named me and my elder sisters. That's why I think even in this whole Sikkimese society, my name is pretty unique. And as And I've actually always longed to know the meaning of my name.
Do we know
So
now?
yeah, actually,
What
I
is it?
have done a lot of kind of research and try to break it up and all. So basically, I think Zenden comes from a Tibetan word Zema, which means actually a gift of beauty.
Okay.
So that's the best guess I have right now. Too sad, like she passed away before I could actually delve much into the meaning of it. So someone like her in my life, though I've met her only a couple of times because she was always out, and I think the thing was always there, the inspiration. But I didn't want, in a way, also I think to be influenced by external decisions. I wanted it to be very my decision. So graduation, like I said, SRCC में a lot of people. It was mainly dominated by the commerce graduates, so most of them doing CA or getting into MBA. And though I didn't want to join the bandwagon, subconsciously even I got into writing CAT, and it was like a essay attempt. So, and luckily I converted one of the new IIMs, Ranchi and the newer IIMs. Like I said, you could pay the fees, and then if you didn't join, if you can, but you could still, retract your admission a few days before the session started. Then you just token deduction where you get back the first semester ka partial fee. So I said, okay, I paid the fees. Then, but I didn't want to do MBA, so I actually retracted my application. Then JNU ka entrance exam came out. Then I applied. I always had interest in international relations also, so I was still confused. So I applied for MA in Eco as well as MA in international relations. Then, like I said, it was like how you give service preference in UPSC. If you get the first one, and the second one, irrespective of however well you do, it becomes immaterial. So I did, my first preference was MA in Eco, so I converted that. Luckily, JNU was another life-changing experience. Then I joined MA in Eco. Then after 2 years of Eco, then I thought a master's came about, what next now? Many people get into civils, many people doing higher studies. Then I thought, let me take a break, right? 1 year, let me figure out what I want to do in life. I really didn't want to commit into anything very substantial before being really sure that I'm in it for the long run. So then I went back home, and like I said, like I'd always been in boarding school right since primary school, and then I came to Delhi for graduation. So I hadn't spent much time with my folks back home as well, especially in adolescence and adulthood. So I went back one day, I stayed at home. I did some few months of work with this NSSO field investigator to see how data is actually collected in the villages of India. So that was a very good experience. 3 months I did that as a field investigator. Then, we were discussing about that seminar.
But all this while, I'm sure all this while your batchmates would have either been writing civils or.
Yeah, some of them had started the preparation.
This is also the time when startup culture in India has also taken a bit, right? Delhi and Bangalore especially.
Definitely.
And I know a lot of SRCC folks in startups doing pretty awesomely well, right? So that bug never bit you.
Startup bug never did actually. Luckily, that was thankfully the one less confusion in my life to ponder over. Probably because I knew startup, was not as interested to drive my startup craze. And also financial capital was very limited in that. That startup requires equal amount of emotional and mental effort as much as financial. Right? So first I wanted to figure out how much I can put into the game, or whatever career choices I wanted to make.
But abhi tak UPSC even light reading did not start. Nothing on the spec.
No, nothing.
Nothing. And let me just fast forward. So then you met with Raghuram Rajan in a seminar of
exactly how we're discussing. So
as an audience,
when I was in Gangtok, then I enrolled into a course also in Sikkim University. And Sikkim University Economics Department had just organized a seminar, and Raghuram Rajan, the then RBI governor, Dr. Raghuram Rajan, had happened to come. So one of the university graduates just asked about career choices and all, and he actually made this, statement that right now don't jump into anything. That's what he suggested. Like, why don't you can experiment things and see what you like and what actually you can really give rest of your life into. Then that really resonated with me, because that's why I had come back to Sikkim, right? To actually see what I can. And I was already in the process of experimenting because I had already started my field investigating work. I'd already enrolled into a course in Sikkim University. Then I did a lot of traveling around Sikkim also because I hadn't traveled much around Sikkim. So then what I did was like, yeah, I mean, if someone like Dr. Raghuram Rajan is saying I'm probably on the right path, I am actually pondering, like, there is no hurry. Others, people are like, you're wasting time. If you want to get into civils, you have to get as early as possible. Everyone has their arguments. Everyone has their perspective, and I have no issue with that. But I just was doing what I thought was right all along the way.
What about your parents? Your father's been in finance ministry. I think he's been an MLA.
No. He was already retired, and my mom retired in 2015. So then they were very supportive. You can take your life choices, think about it, because then the issue was like there was. Luckily there was no parental pressure as such. And the parental pressure actually came a bit later when in that flow in 2000, thoda sa later, but then I happened to clear the state civil exam, right? Without much thing. I had probably because it's a small state and I had done well in my masters and all that. So I had that balance. I cleared civil services. But then I didn't want to join. Like, I know that is like, then why did you waste a seat kind of an argument? But like, because then I thought, by then I realized, okay, probably I want to do M.Phil and come back to Delhi. Then my dad was like, no, state civil service, how can you just leave? You can do M.Phil along with it and all that. That was a huge kind of conundrum going on. But then I applied again to JNU for M.Phil. And I thought, I'll do M.Phil. And side by side, I can see civils opportunities. But then I'll come back to Delhi, right? The Mecca of preparations.
True.
Then I started my M.Phil. And I happened to work with a fantastic guide. So I was doing my research the second year of M.Phil. Then I thought, I did good M.Phil, right? I got a A grade. But I thought to take it to PhD level, I don't think I have that caliber, to be honest. And if I wanted to do M.Phil, I probably wanted to do from a good university abroad. A PhD, sorry, if I wanted to do PhD.
Yeah.
So, but by then, my inclination was already like, okay, civils karna hai, and PhD, I don't think I have, to be honest, I thought you need, and I still feel to do a very good PhD from good university, you need to be very sharp. And I'm not downgrading anyone, but I feel like, okay, civil services, even average and above average minds can do. It's more about hard work, right? And
it's a different aspect. It figures a different aspect of a personality than what PhD wants.
Definitely. PhD is like hardcore research. You have to get in. And the second year of M.Phil, when I was writing my thesis, only by then I realized the PhD, though, I think is not my cup of, to be honest. Then I started, though late, but yeah, then I was like, okay, civils. Okay, and then I started civils. Then the bigger issue was optional. But then it was a natural selection because MA, M.Phil, eco, and then if this guy doesn't take eco, but who will take eco kind of people were raising those questions. And the bigger confusion was service reference. 2016-17. So 2016-17, I had this conversation with my uncle as well. It's like, if I feel foreign service is my first preference, am I being a little selfish to my parents? I mean, I had that doubt, right? Because, parents aging and this, like the only son, and in Indian society, that does weigh in, right? When you make career choices. But I think deep down, I knew that I was interested in foreign services, and so much so that in Masters in Eco, I had taken one optional that JNU gave you that flexibility that you can take courses from other schools. So I had taken a paper, Introduction to Diplomacy, as well in my Masters.
Nice.
So then, so that was like, okay, service I have preference for PhD.
And the journey starts. Yeah, then the journey starts. Was it easy for you to segue in, get into the competitive headspace of prelim mains because you've been a student for this long, or was it like an eye-opener?
Prelims was relatively easy. I won't say easy, but relatively comfortable because, I mean, probably my preparation resonated with the demand of the prelims exam because 6 attempts and I've been able to clear all prelims, touch wood. Okay. Mains was more difficult because honestly, I haven't been such a studious, hardworking kind of student. And I feel this exam more than anything requires that disciplined, determined, that grit, perseverance. You have to. So whenever someone comes right now to me and asks for my opinion, I just say, see, you have to be really determined if you want to get an exam, because you'll be very, very lucky if you get into it in your first or second, even in your second attempt. You have to have such a strong resolve to get into the civil service that you are ready to sweat it out, and that grit determination should just be there at the back of your mind, that you are ready in it for the long run.
But Zenden, so when you just started out, were you very determined, or were you also testing waters with respect to this exam? And did you have anyone around as a mentor or someone who will actually give you these fundas straight on your, on your face that, hey, this is what it is?
So this was by 2016-17, this was this phase, right? And unluckily, I think that time there was no like a single mentor. So my preparation was very wayward initially, because I came more from that M.Phil research background, and I think especially my optional I was getting, and I don't think that is what the exam demands. That's what I feel.
No, you're right.
That too much research, you just I don't want to be saying, but I think thoda sa more upar ka knowledge,
more MBA than
M.Phil, I think. More just graduation level than M.Phil. Okay.
Yeah,
so
true,
then
true.
I thought, okay, fine. But then eco, then I put in the effort then I submitted my M.Phil in 2017. So another aspect that I had issue with, and now when I look back, is I did not have a single complete dedicated attempt types until it came 2018, because I was busy here, and then then 2017 till mid I was giving my M.Phil thesis I submitted. Then 18 I had my Viva for M.Phil. So वो parallelly चल रहा था, but 18 में luckily I got around that 7 months kind of buffer between my M.Phil submission and
prelims.
No, M.Phil submission and Viva, sorry, and prelims and all came in between that.
Oh, okay.
That was where I got complete 6-7 months just to dedicate to civils. So I think that built in 2018. That built my base.
Okay.
That is where I actually read the syllabus clearly, made that point by point lines. So that was where actually the thing started.
Okay.
Though I had taken coaching earlier, but that was, like I said, parallelly with M.Phil classes and all that. So 2018, I got a dedicated attempt. So then 2018 again, but towards the end, I joined this Indian Economic Service. So probably Indian Economic Service required that level of research in eco, because we had 4 eco papers. So luckily I could clear this exam. And this exam requires MA in economics as an eligibility criteria. So the pool is smaller, and the paper is such that it's designed for MA students. So then I cleared MA. I cleared the IES. Then the whole training process started. So again, then 2019 attempt. Though 2018 and 19 I featured in the list, but I felt like it was not the complete kind of an attempt, right? I'd say this is again, I don't know what is a complete, but I felt that probably when I see others giving full dedicated 1 year only studying
for any paper. I mean, any GS paper where you did where you underplayed your hand, or any optional where you thought, eco optional where you thought you'd do better but you didn't.
See, this is a counterfactual kind of situation. I don't know if I had given a dedicated another 1 year untouched preparation with no other kind of thing going on, I don't know whether I would have performed better, worse, or the same. This is a counterfactual which I can't answer, right? But then I gave the 2019 attempt with my training in the Indian Economic Service. So that also, I think but 18, that foundation, like I said, I had built strong foundations, especially conceptually. And I think for prelims, conceptual foundation is very important. So I could sail through prelims in 2019. And again, that mains was, again, I felt like a half-hearted attempt, just 20 days before mains, getting chutti, which I felt did not do justice to the preparation, to the demand of the exam, to the level of competition that is there. And I think though I featured in the list and got the railway traffic service, I thought, no, I'll stick to Indian Economic Service only for now.
Okay. Okay. Just pause on that. Help me understand over your 6 attempts, right? And I'm assuming you spoke with some of the aspirants in and around, and that's an assumption. How have you seen the competition level changing? Is there more awareness? Are attempts more nuanced now with respect to new aspirants? How has this changed over the last, let's say, 6 years or 5 years?
From my perspective, I think, especially with the digital space, I think knowledge has been very democratized. Like you get access to material across. So I think in that aspect, though, because people are have the opportunity of more resources, and because no one wants to leave any stone unturned given the level of competition and what's at stake, I think people are consuming more resource. And that, I don't know whether that is the demand of the exam or not, but that I think has increased the level of competition. And especially in 1819, I think the seats have been 700 plus. Right? From the time we used to hear during our college MA is like 1400 seats, it has come down to 700. I mean, for whatever reasons, and the number of aspirants have increased. Demographic.
So competition
bulge.
That way.
Yeah, competition increased because of the base effect, like the population base, as well as because the resources have increased.
Yeah.
And
okay. One more thing I feel like asking you is because you have access, your parents have been in proper government position, so you might have access to, I would say, old folks who would give you their sense of what is exam demands versus what right now the information clutter we live in right now. Because that's kind of very important. I'm assuming the essence and the core of the services would remain regardless of which era we are in. Because I mean, so tell me more if my assumption is right.
So,
do you have
sorry, I just wanted to cut in. I just had this wide smile because I still remember the day that I joined this new department or this department, or just I happened to call on to the secretary of the department. And people, like, even after 35 years of service, still have that a kind of romantic journey with the civils preparation, I think. So the secretary was like, in my attempt, it's in 80s, but the regard that is there for the exam.
Yeah.
So when you talk about old folks, I think obviously the old folks, if I segregate into the 80s batch or the 90s batch, because I luckily, after getting to the services, I've had the opportunity to interact with civil servants from across 80s batch to as late as my batch, right? Or even junior for that matter. So, and across, it's person specific. I don't mean to generalize as such, but some of the officers that I've met, they always have this kind of, this romanticism with their civils preparation days. Some say like, "Arey, mujhe optional mein itna mila tha, interview mera aisa gaya tha, wo us time pe wo border mein the, usne mera interview liya tha." I mean, however serious the officer, I think once you tickle that preparation wala face, that person becomes an aspirant partly again back. So coming back to your question of the old folks giving guides. See, I think the demand of the exam, I think in some ways probably has changed. I cannot completely justify that because I was not there right previously. Also because the syllabus has changed. So only guidance, I think, that I have picked up from them is obviously more so about, I think the hard work element in the exam has always been the key factor.
The grit that you were mentioning a while back.
Yeah, the grit. I think this exam, if I can summarize in one word, is grit. It's just grit. That is grit, and grit. So
and take us, let's segue to the interview part for a while. You always scored phenomenally well in interview. This time you scored 1.0. Last time I think you scored 190 plus or something, somewhere around that. Anything which any essential piece which you picked up very early on and that helped you get good marks, or you were always awesome like that, or
no. So I think no, I think if I give 4 interviews, if I count the economic service, 5 interviews, and in 4 of them, like if I have scored above average, I don't think it's a fluke. But
I was kidding.
But just to be a little humble, I think. To be honest, I think interview is a personality test. Okay, at least that's what we are given to understand. So, what I have realized over the years is it's an interaction. And you have these kind of interactions with many seniors in office, right? When you speak to the joint secretary of the department, the additional secretary of the department, at the end of the day, I mean, I feel, written exam is one aspect, but because you're trying to showcase what you know in the 200 words, that's all the examiner has, those words in front of them. But when you give an interview, there are so many factors at play. That person is just not listening to you. The person is seeing you. The person is observing you. The non-verbal cues, I feel, are very important. What you say may not seem like what you want to say. I mean, I hope I can...
No, I get the part, but just for the audience, I mean, most of the people who watch Roy and Real are beginners. So if you could give an example from your,
that is...
any real
so I feel like they just want to have this is my perspective. I feel like they just want to have a conversation with you. They're very cordial, okay? Like, I don't want to, like, many people have said this, like, in the actual interview is nothing like the mocks that you give. And I would agree with that, to be honest. Okay, like,
okay.
I don't think the mocks, they can to a certain extent, but the environment that is there in the UPSC with these board members, I mean, it's a different ball game, I feel, altogether. And so when they don't, at times they can prod you, of course, like want to dig out something probably. But more so, I think it's a conversation, a discussion that you have, like with how you have with seniors in your office. Many times you feel like, no, there is no one right answer. That's what I feel in most of my interviews. They're not looking for that right answer. They just want to analyze how you analyze that situation.
Give an example, no, Zenden. I mean,
okay, sure.
In all honesty, you have scored phenomenally well always. Obviously,
I'm very bad at my memory about the questions. Sorry, very bad at the memory of the questions I've been asked over the years. But like this year's question, like just to give an example, like who do you think is the best prime minister India's ever had? There's no right answer, right? Yeah.
Okay, interesting. How did you handle this one?
So I just stated like. Given the at the stage that I am, when India is at so many great leaders and prime ministers specifically, it would not be right for me to pick one over the other and say this is better than the other, right? And if someone says, okay, Mr. XYZ or Mrs. XYZ is the best, there is no right, wrong answer. It's not a fact-based question. It's just a perspective, how you analyze it. So, though I did not take a name, and then the chairman said, like, oh, young man, don't be so diplomatic, we want to answer. And I was about to probably give a name, because then I thought, okay, let's not be too when someone, but then he just cut in and then, so what do you think about so-and-so? So then he started, engaging. Achha, what do you think about this guy's policies? What do you think about his policies? Who do you think is a better orator, this PM or that PM?
Oh, interesting.
So, there is no right answer. Like, who do you think is a better orator? Shri Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji or the present Prime Minister? There is no one right answer, right? So, I mean, whatever off top of my head it came, I just said, I think Atal Bihari Vajpayee on the floor of the House and the present Prime Minister in a public dais. So, I mean... This
is smart wits, I mean, honestly speaking. So, I'll give you where I'm coming from. I was just speaking with Suryaban, who's going to be joining AS, Administrative Services. And he was an IRS before, so he improved upon his rank. And I think even in Civilsdaily mocks, and someone told him that, now you're already in services. And if you're only looking at AS or FS or PS. And it's one single quality they look in you is your decision making. And how fast you can actually pick one from, the stuff and lead with that. And you probably was starting to be slightly more diplomatic with respect to, in fact, the wit actually came out of the rescue even at the end. I mean, it's not that easy, kind of get into the subtle differences and yet be. So what do you suggest? Because people, and I know this from speaking with a lot of candidates, that it's very hard for them to take a stand, because the moment you take a stand, you've taken a position, and now like, hey, as an administrator, am I supposed to be all equiposed and balanced and whatnot? Like, how does one think through it? Like,
see, what I feel is, the most important thing is your stand in no way, and should not rather, be unconstitutional. That is, I think, rule number one.
Yes.
Rule number two, legality aspect. Probably you may agree or disagree with certain laws of the land, right? But then you have to have very like strong reasons to do so. When you put up and thirdly, even in general questions, who do you think is better, this or this, X or Y? When you compare, sometimes they may even ask you to compare apples and oranges. So there is, and because there is no one right answer, because it's not a factual based question, it's how you analyze and reason out. So they are not interested in your answer, they're interested more in your reasoning and your analytical ability. Because probably, and because they have been in this whole government for so long, they know at times you have to take quick decisions, right? It's not that, it's like probably an ethical dilemma kind of situation. It's not, both are not like one is always better than the other. At times you have to make choices even between apples and oranges where you can't even compare, but then you still have to pick one. So I think that is where a stand becomes important, that you may choose apple, but then you have to ensure that at that point of time, apple is done with all your like the knowledge, the analytical ability, the reasonableness that you have at that point of time.
Yeah, so and this has something to do with maths. This analytical ability is to do with structured thinking and, back up whatever your fundamental hypotheses are with data and stuff. This is not usually that easily taught in schools and colleges across India, but I think it's very, very fundamental to how you, put your perspectives out in the public, because that adds the right nuance to what. Awesome. So now we know. Now I think people who are watching this definitely do know, why we're always scaling high on the interview. So thanks for this simple detour. Coming back to your...
Sorry, but that's just one aspect. Don't only go by that stand wala question, I think, in interview.
Okay. No, I mean, like I said... What else?
I said, like interview, I think, is because you are in front of them, five people, like senior people on the board, you're in front of them. So they're analyzing probably your every move, in a sense that how you answer, how you respond, your body language, non-verbal cues, the words that you speak, the expression probably, because you can't give any expression that is unbecoming of an officer. You may not agree with that person, but you can't show certain expressions that are, like how I said, unbecoming on an officer, right? Like, even if you disagree with someone, there is a way to disagree. In your answers, it's just black and white. What is written is what the examiner has. But in an interview, there's, like I said, there's so many dimensions. So even if it's a plain-based yes or no answer question, you give a humble yes or you give a very nuanced no, but you don't showcase like as if you're giving no from a position of authority. I mean, these are the non-verbal cues which I feel are very important. Your body language and even like how you respond to a question, which even might be like, what is the capital of India? But if you say with so much of like why is this person asking me this kind of question, and then give New Delhi with like that kind of snoot of like attitude, I think that is where you might falter.
Yeah, that makes sense. So in your interview, did you get a sense that you're going to score high? I mean, by the time it finished, did you get a sense it went well and there was a flow to it?
To be really honest, apart from one interview in those 4 civils interview, I actually have mixed feelings. It was good. And I keep telling this to my friends that I think interview is all about how you made them feel discussing with you. Did they enjoy their time having this discussion? It's not like this guy gave this many right answers, this many wrong answers. I don't think they're going to tally that. It's like, because most of the time they're just having this discussion with you. Probably by the end of the interview, they not even remember what you answered in your second question. Like if they asked you what is the population of India, they'll probably not remember what figure you gave them. But they'll only I feel most important thing to remember is how you made them feel during that 30 minutes. Did you make them feel that you are in it as a civil servant, that you can be a civil servant, you can be a diplomat, you can be a police officer? Do you have that personality that it takes? That feeling, that when I think normally also when you converse with people, you get like right how the conversation went. You even if you don't remember the answers, how that person made you feel, how the whole discussion panned out, right? Whether you actually gained something out of the discussion, something like that. So because those are from their perspective, I feel like I, for one, would not be able to say, Acha, this interview was better than that interview. that is like mains GS paper. I mean, you actually can't say which paper. Like among the 4 papers, you don't know which one better, but then when your marks come out, you're like, Acha, this one I got more than this one. It's something like
It must
that.
have been better. But you enjoyed all your interviews. I mean, you thoroughly enjoyed the conversation you had with board.
Yeah. I think I enjoyed the conversations. One example that I just wanted to highlight was in my 2021 interview. The day of my interview, I think it was around 16th August. That was the day Taliban just stormed into Kabul, right, in Afghanistan. And foreign service was my first preference.
Yeah.
So the last person for, I think, 15 minutes or something, just spoke. We discussed only about India's foreign policy vis-a-vis, in general, but Taliban in specific. So something like that. So he just said that was just one day Taliban into the thing, and the media had not even covered much. He should India engage with Taliban and all that. So he just asked me, do you think India should engage with Taliban? Now this is where I think this choice comes, right? The principles and interests. In diplomacy, I think when I weigh, it's like when you have principles in one hand, interest in one hand. In GS paper, you can write one paragraph on interest, one paragraph on interest, one paragraph on principles, give examples of both, and give a very like a balanced conclusion, right? Because in GS paper, they'll be like, this one knows about interest, also this guy knows about.
He's put in some framework, covered all the.
Given examples. So in interviews, like, take a choice. Would you prefer? So I just said, I think India should engage with Taliban. Now, whatever it is, no, we don't support. I know we don't talk with terror organizations. We outrightly say our policy has always been like no talks until there are guns on the table. Like no guns on the table, no violence. Only then we'll talk.
Yeah.
Right. But then my point was that is like the pragmatic approach, because what has happened is beyond our control. I mean, Taliban storming in. I mean, it has stormed in. Now that is the unfortunate truth that had happened. But we had a lot of we still have a lot of investments in Afghanistan. We just cannot we don't want to talk to you. Probably you don't talk to them immediately, my point was, but sooner or later you have to. And initially, even 1-2 days, I think the MEA spokesperson or someone, I don't want to quote anyone, but they said, India will not talk to Taliban. But slowly, like diplomatic channels, even through Bangalore channel, it has opened up, right? Because of 3 billion. Then he actually asked me, investments? How much investment? And luckily, I knew somewhere from $3 billion already invested so much in Afghanistan, big projects. We just can't let go, right? There's so many lives at stake. People of Indian origin, Indians living there. I mean, their safety is a priority. Then we come to the interest perspective, right? In domestic interests is what drives diplomacy. I mean, Pakistan, China already will have more sway in Taliban, and given the fragility of the whole Kashmir region, cannot just be like, Acha, we don't want to talk to Taliban, and like, you guys do your bidding, and like, we are out of the table. Until unless you sit on the table, how will you negotiate?
So you guys discussed this for 15 minutes straight.
Something like that. I think I didn't have a watch, but then it went up so long that because the chairman that time I remember is Professor T.C. Anand. And he was so excited because I was from economics and labor ministry, and he had done a lot of research in labor with the labor ministry as a chief. He was chief economist, chief statistician or something. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting. And he's an economics professor. So he asked me one question and he said, "Oh, like there are a lot of economists on the panel. So I will ask you all my questions at the end." But the fourth person had taken so much time in discussion that he was like, "I can't ask you questions now. You may leave," because the time had already short. So something like that. So this example I wanted to give because there is no one right answer, wrong answer, right? Like even it took so many months for our team to understand like Taliban ke saath baat karna chahiye ya nahi, or what should be India's approach into entering now into Afghanistan. So something like that. But if they expect answer from you there and then, I mean, you have to take a particular stand. I mean, they're not going to say like, no, your stand is right or your stand is wrong. No, they just want to know how you analyze your stand. So something. And
was there any time when they put you into a stress situation? And just for everyone's sake, this podcast is now getting heavy into the interview space because I think it's damn interesting. And the nuances which Zenden is talking about is not taught everywhere, and you won't find a lot of people, speaking like this. And so I want to take this opportunity to go slightly more deeper. Was there an interview where you were stressed, where people were just trying to see how you behave, if they're just kind of stressing you out with something, or making you take uncomfortable decisions and opinions? Was there any scenario created?
I think overall, all my interviews are very cordial. I don't know what is a stress interview. I've heard of all this key. There are stress interviews. There's stress interviews.
Yeah, me same here.
But I don't know actually what is a stress interview to realize whether I was in a stress situation. Probably
it might just be. It might just be that they're forced to take an opinion, and then you cannot justify it with your analytical thinking, or maybe you're not able to put that out in the fore, and then they corner you that, hey, you ill thought this through, and maybe that could be a thing.
Could be,
but interesting. So I get this is super awesome. If you can take it back, this last attempt, where I think you mentioned that you changed the optional. And what's that quirky story which kind of made you take the 6th attempt? And this would be the last segment.
Okay, so I had given 5 attempts, 5 names with eco. And now this guy who has done M.Phil in eco has a certain level of thing also. Itna invest kiya eco mein, I mean, like, one more attempt with eco, 1 minute. And then I was after 5. And the funny thing is, now my marks are increasing, not reducing. They're staying the same. Okay. So probably my preparation did not suit to the demand of the exam. Then I thought, then 2020, I thought I'm not giving any more attempts. Like 21, sorry. I thought after I'm not giving any more attempts. So I did not attempt 21. Then I thought ki 5 ho gaya. And like I said, like a tennis fan, I was just like, tennis set mein there are 6 games. Until if you are 5-0, until you're 6-0, you've not lost the set. You can still come back and win 7-5, right?
Yeah.
And my favorite player, Djokovic, has done that a couple of times. Come back and win it. Though my friends are like, no, yours is not 0. I mean, twice or thrice featured in the list. So, but then, like, for someone in the service, I know this sounds like a very first world problem, but someone in the list, rank is important, but what matters more is the service allocation, right? That's why we are putting in the extra attempt, extra effort. So then I thought, I'll give one more 60. Okay, let's make it 6 balls in and over. Let's complete the whole over. And then I'll think. But then I said, see, again, giving with eco with the same thing. Let me just change my optional, see how it goes. Then I scrutinized few optional syllabus and all that. So by end of 2021, beginning of 2022, I was like, social. I found that syllabus interesting and all that. And then I was already reading a couple of books, generally like about like Ramchandran Guha, for that matter, this Pavan Verma, about the great Indian middle class, interesting books. So I thought, okay, social probably. So I was not reading them from that perspective, but then it was, somehow it must have influenced my decisions consciously. So then I took social, and then it was like a roller coaster in the initial phase, because if though I was not getting leaves, I mean, obviously the demand of the work is also there, and then I could conjure up only around 40 days leaves before mains, and out of which 15 days to exam mein jata hai, so roughly a month to prepare a new optional. And my boss was supportive. He was also from social optional, so again he was back. So he was very supportive and gave me leeway and gave me like how you said, older batches giving tips. So he was also tips ki, acha ye book, wo book. But honestly, I didn't have time to do any of the textbooks, any of those traditional.
Did you write mocks or something? Did you write enough mocks?
So yeah, that my friends are like, write mocks. So I don't want to please don't take this as an example. But I joined a particular test series, but I wrote 2 or 3 full-length tests. But the tests I wrote were like not in that 3-hour thing. Okay, 5-6 hours. Beach mein gap lete over 2 days. I wrote just to see what kind of questions are there in social.
Did you do PYQs for the social optional thing? I mean, the standard textbook answer I get from most rankers this year is that
I was struggling to complete the syllabus only. Like past year papers is a far cry. I was struggling to do complete the syllabus. And then because I didn't have time, so I didn't even have to do. I couldn't do those traditional prescribed Bibles of sociology. I just took that guide,
something, right?
Harlambus and all that. I've heard of those names, but I've never seen those books. All I did was I did that Essentials of Sociology that by one of the past toppers, Nitin Sangwan, if I'm not wrong.
Okay.
I did that book, and then I watched those sleepy classes during office hours. I should just so it was building my social perspective. So I mean, please, especially if you're optional method, you should write test series. So yeah, so that way, social was a challenge, but I actually felt it was interesting because probably I had to study it only once. And if I have to study that same thing again, then probably I'll start getting irked by sociology as well. So this exam competition is such, now it really can irk you. The subject which you started with interest can really irk you. I mean, that's the ugly side of the exam.
I've heard a lot. I've heard a lot from, same line from a lot of folks. I think then, but beginner's luck on your way then. Socio first.
No, but then I actually thought it was socio. But then when the marks came out, it wasn't socio. Socio, I got the same mark that I got previously in eco. Or probably thought lower also. And surprisingly,
social really good in this year.
I think all my GS marks improved around 10 marks more than my previous thing. So that makes a lot of difference. At 5-10 marks in each GS paper. That makes a lot of difference. So I think GS, with that accumulated knowledge over years, so GS was like that. Essay, to be honest, all the years I've scored like the same kind of marks, 130s and late 130s, early 150s. This time also it was that. So, and I think essay this year, I think was thoda sa come on an average marks. Ethics was also okay. I scored 100 and something, 110, something like that. So, all the GS 5 marks improved, and interview was the savior, I think, towards the end.
Was a clincher. Awesome. Then I think we thought of recusing you pretty early because it's anyway long day. It's almost 11 now. But thank you so much for taking the time out, staying up too late with us. I'm sure that a lot of folks will have so many questions about more on the interview, more on the personality development side of them, right? I mean, the nuances that you mentioned, people might want a masterclass whenever time permits.
Sorry, I was just taking out my earphone and charging my phone. You're talking about the interview aspect.
No, I'm saying that, my hunch is that because people will hear this podcast and will get to know a lot of nuances which you mentioned, right? This is something rarely which happens in any podcast that I go deep into an interview. We usually go deep into mains and what PYQ did you solve, what test series, and how did you map syllabus, etc. But this interview
I think focus should always be unconditionally more obviously on mains, right? Mains is 170 marks. I mean, like how they say, mains should be such that interview actually does not matter. I mean, easier said than done, but that should be the goal.
Yeah.
One mentor or someone said, make your mains interview proof, something like that.
Yeah. At least rank aa jaye karke. At least you get the rank.
Because I think past years also there have been toppers who've scored average in interview, it's still topped, right? So it's all about means. I mean, I would still say that all the hard work should be focused on means. Obviously, once you clear mains, then interview ke liye you have ample time. And I feel like, to be honest, also, how much can you change your personality in 1-2 months or whatever they're seeking? You can fine tune here and there, but how much can you really know what they're going to ask in that 30 minutes?
No, but I think what you mentioned, that you back your opinions with your analysis and all these things, and take a stand, don't shy away from that. It's the same thing I've heard in last 2 days from Surebhan and Divyank, another guy who got IPS. He said that I just went like the way I was, and I backed myself with my opinions with whatever data or understanding I had of the society which I came from. And because that's what I am, and that's why I want to join the ASPS FS, the top services which I'm aiming at. And this kind of also is a very new and I would say authentic expression of candidates in this way, right? I mean, that's at least what I gleaned from whatever little folks I've spoken with in the R&R series. But awesome. And all things considered, I'm sure you're going to have hectic days ahead before you finally get the service allocated to you. Do let me know. And when you have some time, we'll try to get a webinar done, a close group webinar when, selected folks would come and, kind of have an open field day asking their
Sure.
question.
Sure.
That would be so great to have one day.
So thank you
Thanks,
so
Zenden.
much for this opportunity. It was
My
very pleasure talking
My
to
pleasure.
you.
Same here.
And I really hope I can, if I can even inspire one person to perform better, I think that would be an achievement of this discussion.
Awesome. Yeah. With that wonderful thought, I look forward to seeing you again in a much more private and much more elaborate setting. Yeah. Chalo, take care.
Great. Thank you so much.